Nine friends, nine books, nine writers. Presenting Book Talk by CET 93. Batchmates from College of Engineering, Thiruvananthapuram talk about their favorite books.
Hi, this is Sheena. I live in Noida. So today I want to speak about the novel The Lowland penned by Jhumpa Lahiri. The novel describes beautifully the bond shared between two brothers, Subhash, the elder one, and Udayan, the younger one. The brothers share a very close-knit bond even though they believe in different ideologies. Both of them are academically inclined, and after completing their graduation, they drift apart to pursue their own choice of subjects. Then prefers to stay in Kolkata, whereas Subhash goes to pursue his higher studies in Rhode Island in the United States. And somehow then gets inclined to the Naxalistic movement that time predominant in West Bengal, and in the process he gets killed. Before getting killed, he was married to a girl Gauri who belonged to the same Naxalistic community, and she was expecting their child when Udayan got killed. So when Subhash got a letter from the family that Udayan got killed, he was asked to visit their home. And when he lands in Kolkata, he gets to know that Gauri was being mistreated by his parents. So being a compassionate soul, Subhash offers his support to Gauri, and she accepts Subhash's help and goes to Rhode Island with him to pursue her higher studies. And in the meantime, she gives birth to a beautiful girl child, Bella. So Bella grows up, and she considers Subhash as her father. But later stages, she gets to know that he is her uncle. But still nothing changes because Subhash was very compassionate and kind, and the bond shared between Bella and Subhash was more loving and supportive than what Bella shared with her own mother. And one morning, to their shock, they find out that Gauri has moved on, and she has left a note for Subhash to take care of Bella. But both dad and daughter, they continue to live their lives, and with the help of Bella, Subhash also tries to get up and live his life. And the story ends when Subhash decides to focus on his own happiness with the help of Bella and moves on. So even though this gives you a sad vibe, it's a beautifully written novel, and Subhash is portrayed as a person who is kind and compassionate and who sacrifices his own happiness for the well-being of Gauri and her daughter. But Gauri is kind of portrayed as selfish and detached soul who never used to give her kind of contribution in the marriage, and breadcrumbed Subhash. So this story is, I would suggest that it's a kind of a story you should read once at least. I have read it multiple times, and this is a kind of book which one would like to carry to a cafe and sit alone and read with a cup of coffee. So yeah, happy reading. Thank you.
My name is Biju Parameswaran. I live in Thiruvananthapuram. The sport of cricket does not figure in V.S. Naipaul's books, but it was a love of the game that attracted me to the man and his books in the mid-80s. The West Indies were the dominant team in the world, and I was curious to know more about this group of islands in the Atlantic Ocean, independent countries that came together under one banner for the purpose of cricket. I chanced upon this writer's works at the now defunct British Council Library in my hometown. In fact, I first read his younger brother Shiva Naipaul, a brilliant travel writer who passed away early. These men were descendants of indentured laborers who had migrated to the Windies from Uttar Pradesh. V.S. Naipaul had by then a body of work encompassing masterly travelogues and well-crafted novels that he was touted in the literary circles as a potential Nobel laureate. I too waited patiently for a decade and a half, as it turned out, to see the honor come seeking him in 2001. Sir Vidyadhar Suraj Prasad Naipaul was born in Trinidad and Tobago in 1932. When he was 18, he went to study at Oxford and made England his home. Following no other profession but writing and considering himself rootless, he travelled widely and wrote objectively about societies he came in contact with. In the process, Naipaul also incurred the wrath of establishments who were uneasy with his calling a spade a spade. His India travel trilogy is a case in point. A House for Mr. Bishwas, that came out in 1961 when the writer was not quite 30, was the book closest to him as it was drawn from his own life. His father C. Prasad, a journalist who had ambitions of making his son a writer, is the inspiration for the title character Mohan Bishwas. He is unhappily married to Shyama, modelled after Vidya's mother Draupadi. Raising 4 children and constantly struggling for money, they are always bickering. Bishwas takes up a string of jobs like apprentice to a priest, signboard painter, grocery store runner, and news reporter. He tries to garner dignity for himself by insisting on the honorific Mr. in his name. This is typical of the sardonic portrayal of the island characters in Naipaul's novels. Even though Mohan Bishwas pulls himself out of poverty, he feels alienated since the joint family of the Tulsis that he had married into looks down upon him. His desire to break out and carve his own identity makes him want a house of his own. This book is a saga of a man who fights to free himself from the entanglements of family, custom, and religion. A House for Mr. Bishwas is at once a microcosm of life in 600 pages and a peek into a colonial society about to begin its transition. As someone who cares more for the telling than the tale when it comes to fiction, I admire Naipaul's understated style and wry humor. Read the book to watch a 20th century master craftsman at work, weaving a tale set in the landscape of a tiny but nevertheless fascinating Caribbean island. Thank you.
I'm Sudha. Wonder is a children's novel by Raquel Jaramillo under the pen name of R.J. Palacio. A wise man once said, "It is the childlike curiosity which makes us read any book," and hence this book for this collaboration of English novels. While this book is written for children, its message is relevant to any human being age no bar. This is a novel about a 10-year-old, August Pullman, nicknamed Aggie, who was born with severe facial deformity and couldn't attend any mainstream school until he was in 5th grade. The book begins with Aggie saying, "Whatever you're thinking, it's probably worse," he says of his face. Though he is used to the stares and mean comments from strangers, he still dreams of being ordinary and want to belong. Don't we, even the adults, wish that we belong? Maybe in the gang of school friends, or be in the conversations the neighbors are having. Though the sense of needing to belong is such a primal reaction, yet we forget to make an attempt to be inclusive sometimes without even giving it a second thought. At first, I admit it. I was only friendly to him because Mr. Tishman asked me to be especially nice and all that. But now I would choose to hang out with him. Jack, Aggie's friend at school, says, "We have all been bullied before, criticized or cast aside because of how we look, how we talk, what we wear, or who we hang out with." This book is a refreshing reminder for each of us to look past the differences on the outside and learn to look deeper and be more accepting. Jack, sometimes you don't have to mean to hurt someone. You understand? This comment from the book prompts us that we are all human. We have our dumb moments. We make mistakes and we all have flaws. It also makes us realize how we sometimes act one way, friendly and caring, while in the presence of someone won't even stand up when others are bad-mouthing our friend behind their back, even if it is unintentional. The thing is, I think the wonder teaches us to be courageous and make a conscious effort in being honest to ourselves. Not directly or forthright like you would expect, but subtly with a lot of finesse and humor. You're beautiful and perfectly imperfect. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And yes, let all of us become beautiful and imperfectly perfect in our own behaviors. And let this book be an inspiration to be different, happy in our own skin, and doing the right thing even if it is hard.
My name is Sangeeth and I live in Dubai. Reviewing a book is much more tough than a movie. There is so much to cover. With a series of 4 novels, well, that's really something. I'm talking about the Neapolitan novels written by Elena Ferrante. It is only a pseudonym. Nothing is much known about the author. The first book in the series is My Brilliant Friend, and it begins with a phone call to Elena, or Lenu, the narrator, from Reno, son of her dearest friend Leela, or Lena, real name being Rafaela. Reno tells Lenu that Leela has disappeared at the age of 66. Lenu searches her home for any old pictures or memories of her friend Leela and finds she cannot find anything, no trace. In anger, she sits down and starts writing about her memories of her old friend, her life with Leela. And it begins in 1950s Naples. That's the premise for the series. So what's so special about it? It is simply the incredible fashion in which the story unfolds. You know that Leela and Lenu are still alive when the book starts, but you can't imagine how this happens. The violence in the background is so palpable and it's never far away. You really don't know what happens next or what is going to happen next. All the characters, the friends, the relatives, their family are all in your mind and they comes to life. And it's really as if you are part of it. The book is about friendships, betrayal, passion, political happenings at that time, the fascism which is happening in Italy, all these things. But mainly it's about Leela and Lenu's ever-changing relationship. Lenu is in awe of Leela and she tries to emulate her in all the things she does. She is in awe of her friend, and Leela is also envious of her friend. The book is all about their life. It's simply unputdownable. The first book in the series, My Brilliant Friend, was published in 2012. The second book, The Story of a New Name, in 2013. The third, Those Who Leave and Those Who Stay, in 2014. And the final one, The Story of the Lost Child, in 2015. Once you finish this, you go back to My Brilliant Friend. That's how addictive it is. So just grab your copy and start reading. It's simply an amazing series. That's all. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mydhili Nair, working as professor in Ramayana Store Technology, Bangalore. Why am I talking about my profession to you folks? Because today I'm going to talk about a revered professor in computer science from CMU, Carnegie Mellon University, and why he wrote an autobiographical book. I got this book as a prize for asking a question from the audience during an IEEE conference way back while doing my PhD. It was gift wrap and given, and I thought it was a nice big slab of chocolate. You can imagine my surprise when I opened the gift wrap and saw a book titled Last Lecture with the following opening lines. What do you do when you know that you have only a few months left to live, that you're staring at CT scan images of your pancreas showing more than half a dozen malignant tumors. To top it all, the doctor says that you have only about 3 to 6 months of good health left. In 2006, this is exactly what the co-author and protagonist of this book, Dr. Randy Pausch, had to deal with when he was all of about 45 years old. This picture shows Randy and Jay Pausch and their 3 young children, boys Dylan and Logan, aged 6 and 3 years, and Chloe, a girl just 18 months old. The genesis of the story revolves around a lecture Randy was invited to give in CMU roughly a month after he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. The book describes his internal struggle of wanting to give before he died that one last lecture up that podium in CMU versus the precious time he had left to build memories for his wife and kids to cherish after he left them forever. On September 18, 2007, Dr. Randy Pausch finally did give that last lecture in CMU in front of a packed audience of more than 400 people. The lecture became viral on the internet, which led to the offer to convert it into this book. So, what did he talk about in that last lecture? His lecture was really about achieving your childhood dreams. A good part of the book describes how he never forgot or dismissed these dreams and strived well into his 20s and 30s to take them as and when he achieved them. Given his vivid imagination, one of Randy's boyhood urges was to paint the walls of his bedroom. Instead of snubbing down this wish, his parents encouraged it. This especially struck a chord in me because I also had such a home. I used to take crayons and pencils, climb on top of my brother's table and draw and write on his room's white walls. I used to teach my parents, brother, my dog, anybody who chose to listen to me. Sadly, did not take pictures of it as Randy did, so I cannot show them here. This book is really a series of 61 short lectures, stories of people in his professional and personal lives, students, mentors, colleagues, friends, and family. It's a comfort book. One can pick it up and read specific portions because there's a story for almost every emotion: fear, insecurity, emptiness, euphoria in achieving a goal, romance, you name it. The book will have a story based on that emotion. So pick it up and read on.
My name is Gopikrishnan and I live in Bangalore. Early this century, I lived in Japan for 15 months. While there, as usual, I started soaking up all things local: history, culture, outdoors, language, and of course literature. Haruki Murakami was sort of a natural outcome. I can say many things about the man and his writing, but what makes him stunningly unique is his style. The style elements are all over a Murakami novel in great depth: Western classical music and jazz, Japanese and world cuisine, and the clothing of his characters. If it's coats, it would be a down jacket, or a parka, or a bomber jacket, or a hooded coat, or a poncho, or some such, with exquisite texture around the brand, the color, the stitching, the feel. You get the drift. Then there are phone calls and their ominous rings, cats, always cats, aiding the sense of intrigue, parallel universes which open up through dreams, or maybe not. All of these and more is usually written from the perspective of a young man in his 20s or early 30s. He's apathetic, detached, undemonstrative emotionally, not standing up for himself, a little lost. But he's also in many ways deeply perceptive, comfortable in his own skin, with a job that is either utterly ordinary or totally strange. I've read a dozen of his works, novels, short story collections, and his one-off book, What I Talk About When I Talk About Running. Among these, what has probably been the most mind-altering was the Wind-Up Bird Chronicle, a 600 plus pager that I read back in 2007. Like all Murakami books, the real meets the surreal in every other page. You wonder what is implied by the various set pieces, like the vanishing cat that sets the novel on its path, or the abandoned well where the protagonist keeps going down and spending time alone, Is it a metaphor for challenges of life? Or status of the relationship? You are never out of the spell. Toru comes from the same young man template. Through mystery, infidelity, inexplicable happenings, surreal imagery, bizarre dreams, the story moves forward. Enigmatic characters appear and disappear at intervals. At the end, all the pieces are linked together, but based on your personal interpretation. Toru watches people to size up their baldness for a weak company. At one point, he sees a homeless man on the subway platform with gorgeous hair. He can't help but wonder about the pointlessness of the expensive hair products that people use to fight their genes, while this man, who doesn't even take a decent shower, has such lustrous locks. Long after you've forgotten the story, you still retain the overall atmosphere as well as random imagery like this. Like I've told many a friend, if you want a psychedelic trip into a wormhole of an alternative reality, there is no need of any chemical substances. Read a Murakami, he'll just grab your mind and bend it for you to cross the bridge to a different world. Go for the Wind-Up Bird Chronicle. Thank you.
My name is Gayathri. I live in Austin, Texas, USA. Today I will be sharing with you a few highlights from the book The Tale of the Mistaken Anklet by Kaliyan Edirasan, which is an English translation of the Tamil epic Silappadigaram by Ilango Adigal. The epic written during the Sangam period around 5 AD. Although I am a Tamil native speaker and I was aware of this epic, I had not heard the specific readings until I watched dance program with verses from Silappadigaram. The main protagonists of Silappadigaram are Kovalan, Kannagi and Madhavi. The amazing thing I found about this epic poetry is that it employs a combination of prose, music and drama. The story is divided into 3 kandams or sections: Puhar Kandam, Madurai Kandam and Vanchi Kandam. The subsection is from Madurai Kandam and is called the Kolai Kalai Kadai, an episode where the protagonist Kovalan, after moving back with his beloved wife Kannagi, is trying to make their ends meet. Kannagi has asked Kovalan to sell her silappu or anklet, and Kovalan goes to the goldsmith. As he takes leave of Kannagi, he laments about how he has betrayed her. She, on the other hand, steadfast and devoted to her master, remains gracious as she is portrayed throughout the epic. Kovalan, despite encountering bad omens, presses ahead. Upon reaching the bazaar of Madurai, ruled by the benevolent Pandya king Neduncherian, he meets the goldsmith. The goldsmith is like a messenger sent by the god of death, bowing to him. I do not know how to evaluate the anklets worn by women, but I am good at making things like crown for the king. Kovalan took out the anklet and gave it to him. The anklet was implanted with gold, diamond and alternately with pits for pressing gems, and was made by a special gold called Kilichirai, and was enclosing valuable materials and made with skill. That scheming goldsmith who had just found this anklet thought it similar to the one he had stolen from the palace. The goldsmith told Kovalan that the valuable anklet shall not suit anybody other than the queen herself. Pillai returned after showing the anklet to the victorious king. Please wait by my cottage. Hearing this, Kovalan went inside the wall of the divine garden by the side of the goldsmith's house. Because the goldsmith had earlier stolen the anklet of the queen, he thought, before the king comes to know that the queen's anklet was with me, I shall put the blame on the person who had come from another kingdom and see that I am not blamed for the theft. So friends, this is another crucial turning point in this story, whereafter Kannagi goes to set Madurai on fire, angered by the false accusation and murder of her husband, Kovalan, by the king himself. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Venkatesh and I live in Kochi, Kerala. I belong to the CET 93 batch of students. During the CET days, my identity was usually linked to books or a career guidance unit, where I used to hang out all the time. But of late, especially in the last 5 years or so, my identity has changed to that of a runner. Now, I have never been athletic during my college or school days. Then how come I get this identity as I approach the half-century milestone in the next few months? For this, I had to thank the enterprising group of people in Kochi called the Souls of Cochin. The Souls introduced me to the fine form of running and also to this book that I am talking about in this podcast, Born to Run, by Christopher McDougall. In our running group, this book is sort of a Bible, nothing short of that. Almost everyone in the group has a copy of this book. I first read the book about 5 years ago, during my very early days of running, where I would be proud of myself after a good 5K run in about 45 minutes or even an hour. Now, it was the early days of running, and after every run, I would acquaint myself with a muscle or ligament in my body as they cry out for attention. And I was wondering, why does my body hurt so much after a short run, while others in the group are running marathons with the same appetite as downing the Saranabhavan idli and sambar? It was exactly the same question, why does my foot hurt, that set Christopher McDougall in search of so many things, and that resulted in this book, Born to Run. The book starts off with Chris exploring the Copper Canyons to find Caballo Blanco, or the White Horse, who is very hard to find but has been living and running with the Mexican tribe of Tarahumara, the world's greatest tribe of long-distance runners, according to Chris. Now, Chris is trying to find out what makes the Tarahumara the best runners, and in order for him to reach them, he needs to find Caballo Blanco, whose real name is Mika True, from Boulder, Colorado. From that point onwards, Chris takes us through a journey that involves the dangerous Copper Canyons and through some detailed description of some of the world's greatest ultra-marathon runners like Scott Jurek, and also some insights into great ultra-marathons of the world. He does manage to get an answer for his question on the right running techniques, and it involves the right kind of footwear and also the right nutrition for the runners. He discovers that the most expensive running shoes with their high heels and cushions actually cause more damage to the body than helping us run better. Now, on my first read of the book, I got a lot of inspiration to try out long distance running, and the technique of relaxing into your run and letting the body flow into the rhythm of the run really helped me conquer the fear of marathons. It was also inspiring to read about so many ultra runners and their thought process when it comes to training, heart rates and food habits. Like, all of it really breaks down the science of running. It does not matter whether you are a runner or a wannabe runner or just curious to know what all this fuss is about running. I would recommend reading Born to Run with an open mind and then maybe going out to the park to test your knees. Let me know how that feels. Now, as a non-fiction book, it certainly takes some liberties, especially when it comes to numbers and statistics. But the intent was to give an insight into some of the greatest runners and their techniques. And in the due course, the author might have taken a liberty with the numbers, I think, which can be overlooked. For this podcast, I wanted to reacquaint myself with the book. And in the second reading, I could relate to many instances described in the book, as I can now claim to have put down a few miles on my shoes. And the book has inspired me to try out more ultra runs. After all, the human race is definitely born to run. Thank you.
My name is Lekshmi. I live in Trivandrum. Salvage the Bones by Jasmine Ward. Set in the Mississippi Gulf Coast, in the backdrop of Hurricane Katrina, the story is delivered through the eyes of 15-year-old Ash, who is newly pregnant. 12 days in the lives of this unforgettable African-American family. Ash, her largely absent, hard-drinking father, her 2 older brothers, the oldest is 17, and a 7-year-old younger brother. Amidst the grinding poverty, sexual abuse and violence, the affection that the siblings have for each other triumphs over everything that the system and even nature can throw at it. The thing that stood out the most for me was that this affection is always an undercurrent in Ash's interpretation of a touch or a fleeting glance, never overtly expressed. Memories of her mother, who has been dead for 7 years now, meet Ash at every turn. When she tends to her brother's broken knee, when she's out hunting for eggs, when she's hanging out the sheets. When her dad loses his fingers in an accident, she wonders if Daddy will feel his missing fingers the way we feel Mama, present in the absence. The tenderness and strength of Mama's character blew my mind. The imagery is vivid. I was able to see everything. The pit, which is what the lot where the family has lived for generations is called. The rundown house, Daddy's dump truck, the chicken coop, the dog house, the fury of the hurricane, and how the family help each other survive the treacherous conditions. I liked the lyrical style. When the hurricane makes landfall and their home gets flooded, Esh and her family seek refuge in their attic. A few lines from the book then. We sat in the open attic until the wind quieted from jet airplanes to coughing puffs. We sat in the open attic until the sky brightened from a sick orange to a clean white grey. We sat in the open attic until the water, which had milled like a boiling soup beneath us, receded inch by inch back into the woods. We sat in the open attic until the rain eased to drips. I liked that the story ends in hope in the face of unfathomable loss. Jesmyn Ward, the author, herself knew rural poverty, had lived through Hurricane Katrina, and knew families like Esh's. I liked how she chose the title for the book. The word salvage is phonetically close to savage, a term that to young African Americans stands for honor. Come what may, you are strong, fierce, and you possess hope. You are savage. Bones? Bones is meant to remind the reader what this family and others like them are left with after tragedy strikes. All you can do is salvage the bones. At the end of the day, love and loyalty are all that sustain.